Welcome to Spotlight. I'm your host, Amitha. Join us weekly to get inspired by guests who'll share their success stories. Mind, body, and soul wellness is more important than ever in these uncertain times with the COVID 19 pandemic. Today, we turn to an expert for advice. She's an empowering female community leader who leads by example as a fitness coach, a women's health and mental health advocate, and a dedicated wife and mother. It's with pleasure I welcome to our show Miss Reena Parekh. Hi, Reena.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to see you, and we are very excited to learn about some of the tips you're going to give us, and also discuss about the world of fitness. But first of all, let's introduce our viewers to you generally. Tell us a little bit more about your growing up and education.
Well, I grew up, born and raised in Canada. I grew up in a small town by the name Cambridge, Ontario. So at the time it was quite small. Typical upbringing. Went to public school and then university. I have a background in economics and psychology. And then I went on to postgraduate where I did marketing, and I landed in corporate events for the better part of a decade before leaving that career behind and transitioning to fitness.
Wow, what an amazing journey. I mean, you have almost touched every walk of life through your entire journey, starting. But what exactly inspired you to go into fitness?
So it's an interesting journey. And I think it really comes down to it starting with dance. Dance was the form of movement that I loved growing up. And I mean, you and I danced together for a number of
Yes.
years. And so my entire life I danced. And I think I reached a point where, I was balancing a corporate career. I was dancing professionally, but I was also teaching group fitness part-time. And I started to discover this love for the group fitness environment. And, at some point you have to make choices because we can't do it all the time. And so I made a conscious decision to leave dance behind and pursue fitness. And when my son was born, that was really the opportunity that presented itself, where I was on maternity leave, the company was folding. And so my position was let go while I was on mat leave. And so I stayed home with my son and then decided that since I was already returning to group fitness, I wanted more. And so I started my own personal training business.
Amazing. So it's like you said, it was a journey, and what life gave you took it and made the best out of it. And now you're such an influencer all over with your, fitness entrepreneurship. I have to say, the common man or woman, I would say a common person shies away, when they hear about fitness programs because they sometimes think it's a little bit extreme, but that's not the case with what you offer. Tell us what's different about what you offer.
So I work primarily with mothers and anyone who knows a mom. I don't like to classify, I work with busy moms because I actually don't know any mom that isn't busy because we wear so many hats and we have, 100, things going on in our minds all the time. We're on top of everything. And when it comes down to fitness, there's a couple of groups of people. There's people who absolutely don't like the gym and they're not fitness people, but they need to do something. Then there's the people like myself who love physical activity, but postpartum can sometimes make that difficult returning to physical activity, in a physical way. And then there's like the fitness enthusiast who enjoys fitness and physical activity, but again, all the common stream between all three of those is pregnancy and postpartum. They have a massive impact on our bodies. And we don't quite always talk about what it takes to recover and heal and retrain our bodies for physical activity. And not just, high intensity training, but even like day-to-day life, like climbing the stairs and carrying your kids and the groceries. And that's all functional. And so what I always tell my clients or any potential clients is, I want this to work with you. I don't want to give you a 4-day regimen where you have to commit, an hour every single time to a very structured plan. unless you have some very serious performance goals and you're willing to make that commitment. But for most people, especially right now during the pandemic, they need something that works with their lives. So sometimes that means 20-minute workouts in between Zoom meetings, or hopping on their Peloton for 10 minutes in between meetings, just to feel like they're getting something in. And so what I do with clients is I make it work with their lives as they are today. So it doesn't require any kind of overhaul for them. And this is where we start taking small steps so that we can get long-term results, if you will, for better health and mobility.
I love it. So it's more custom made, I guess. You go client by client basis, and so then it's doable. And then the common person doesn't get afraid when they hear fitness program. Now, what are some of the challenges? I mean, it's amazing, and hats off to you. You are, first of all, a female empowering leader with your own business, right? The fitness business. What were some of the challenges, like setting up, getting that clientele, and now you're an influencer, but I'm sure there have been some challenges along the way.
Absolutely. Well, how much time do we have when it comes to challenges? Well, starting your own business, no matter what it is you're doing, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have failures, but the reality is you have to take the chance. And if you really believe in what you're doing, that's when you know that you're going to be successful. And how you measure success is up to you, whether that's dollar value or how many people you've helped or, anything else. And for me, the challenges arise when I have a partner who works out of the house, or at that time was out of the house 7 days a week working. He runs his own business, and I was a primary caregiver. And so for me, I'm like, if I want to do this, I have to make this work with what's happening in our lives right now. So that meant getting up at 5 a.m. to see clients in their home. That meant doing boot camps in the park at 8 p.m. And then staying up till midnight some nights doing online programming. And so it was just really like the way that my business has evolved. Started an in-home training, moved to a gym where I decided, at some point when I had a space to rent, that I'm like, everyone's going to come to me. And so this was now me setting my boundaries as a business owner to say, this is where I work, and this is when I work, and this is how I work. And is it getting me, top dollar all the time? No, but we have to make sacrifices. For me, that was ensuring that my family had balance as well. And then COVID hit. And so now we've transitioned everything online. And so now we are virtual, just as you and I are doing this virtually.
Very well said. I love how you define success and how everybody defines what success is for them. Very inspiring, Reena. We have more to talk about, but before that, it's time for a short break. Welcome back to Spotlight. We are talking to the inspiring Reena Parekh. So I love how you have shared your journey. It's such a real journey that everybody can relate to. And, you being an influencer, you already know, there's so much out in the digital world that it's not maybe real, and I've followed you on your platforms, and you're so real when it comes to talking about day-to-day life, day-to-day goals, the struggles. So I would say, I mean, your clients are blessed to have you as their coach. And you already talked about how you have a specialization towards, maternal health. Let us get to specific details about how there's a focus also on prenatal and postnatal, and how that came about from your own life journey.
So I think it was a natural evolution. When I became a mother, that's when I started this business. And at some point, I just ended up working with moms and learning as I went about their special considerations that we need to make. And I resisted it for a long time. When we talk about challenges, I resisted making that my niche for a really long time. And I looked at my clientele, and it was over and over again. I was attracting the same clientele, but I still resisted it. And I think it was about 2 years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter, my second. And, I went into that pregnancy very, very strong, probably the strongest I'd ever been. like physically. And that pregnancy was what threw me through a loop. I had pelvic pain, I had girdle pain. It was very uncomfortable. I was diagnosed with a low-grade prolapse during pregnancy. And then the postpartum recovery also diagnosed me with another low-grade prolapse. And I had quite the journey in my postpartum rehabilitation. And it wasn't until I started experiencing, that pregnancy and all the challenges that came with it, where I realized that, I was training at the time, and I'm like, we don't see enough of this on the reality side. We only see like really strong CrossFitters doing CrossFit when they're 6 months, 7 months pregnant. And maybe that's the right choice for them, but is that the example we want to set for the general population? Probably not. And then there's bounce back culture, which, I know, I don't really know anybody that's bounced back like this from having babies to looking like they didn't have any children at all. And the pressure I feel that society puts on women and individuals who have given birth, it's too much. And social media really heightens that pressure. And I feel like that really makes individuals turn inwards. They shy away from physical activity. And that's when we start to see postpartum depression and anxiety. Mental health becomes affected. And so there's so many different factors that become affected by it. And for me, I wanted to set myself apart, not for a business perspective, but to show that there is a reality. This is a fitness professional who has issues, who has struggled with postpartum, who has talked about her own mental health journey, because it's relatable. And that's really what social media is about. Let's make it relatable. Let's build a community around it. Let's find ways to support each other.
Amazing. I mean, you're already mentioning hints of that advocacy that you have towards mental health, and your whole, life journey, where you started and where you are now, is that evolution that you talked about. And that's why everything you do is about advocating for mental health, and maybe with a slight niche for the maternal or the women's health. Tell us a little bit more about how you're doing it through your business.
So the way that I advocate, and so when we talk about advocacy, there can be a lot of different definitions of that. And so the way that I had started this was really just sharing my own experience through pregnancy, through postpartum, and just being very transparent. And the number one reason that I did that was because we need better representation. When we think of disordered eating, when we think about maternal mental health, when we think about the postpartum fitness journey, mainstream media generally only showcases one type of individual. And that is the ideal. And they're often white, and they're often, thin. And that's not our reality. Especially in a place like Toronto, we're so diverse. And so where's the representation? And for me, with the South Asian heritage, I know that these topics can be taboo within our own communities. We don't talk about pelvic health in postpartum. We don't talk about maternal mental health and how that can impact a mother. And these are the things that need to be destigmatized in order for us to better support the mothers in our community, because really they are the ones holding things together in the household. And what better way than to share our own journey and our own stories. That's how we heal, and that's how we connect with others. And I have found that using social media as a platform to do that has really created a beautiful community of openness and vulnerability.
Very well said. I love the fact that you use the term representation. Along the same lines, what do you think then are some of the voids in the mainstream fitness industry?
Well, I mean, when we look at diversity as a whole, we're talking not just skin color, ethnicity, race diversity, but also body diversity, gender diversity. It's really rare to find a whole row of fitness magazines where the people don't all look the same, And so I think 2020 has been an awakening, and we're starting to see slow progress. And, at some point, I think I just got tired of looking for a role model that looked like me that I could relate to. And I said, I'm done with looking for one. And I decided to start leading the way because, if we don't make the change, then who will? And so it takes somebody to step up and do it. And I want to be part of that change. I want to be part of that narrative for the next generation to say, look, there are South Asian women and mothers who are doing the non-traditional career, business ownership, lifting heavy things, and talking about postpartum health.
Thank you. From the bottom of my heart and from our viewers, to be that trailblazer, and not just kind of trying to stay within the comfort zone. You already mentioned how you have gone virtual with these challenging times. So we want to find out more. But before that, it's time for a short break. Welcome back to Spotlight. We are talking to the inspiring fitness coach, mental health advocate, women's health advocate, a dedicated wife and mom, Miss Reena Parekh. So, what an amazing conversation thus far. How you're talking about how what you offer is what a common person can relate to, somebody, something that you don't have to shy away from, and to embrace yourself just the way you are. Now, in these times with the COVID-19 lockdown, small businesses like yourself have been affected. You've already mentioned that earlier, and you said you have also had to adapt to these changing times with going on, virtually. Tell us a little bit more about the challenges and what do you advocate as a small business to bring about, better support for small businesses?
That's a loaded question. Well, let's start from the beginning. So yes, I'm in a very lucky position where I'm a freelancer. So I don't own a studio space. I rented from the owners. And so for me, it was almost easy to say that I was able to transition online. Doesn't come with, of course it comes with its challenges, but it's easier than having been, somebody who has a brick and mortar location. And my heart really does go out to the smaller studios. I think that the government needs better, more clear guidelines as to why they're making the decisions that they're making around the closures that are happening. I understand that the lockdown needs to happen. I understand we need to get this thing under control. However, I do believe that if we can have larger stores, big box, for example, if they are able to remain open to provide the services that they provide, a studio like the one that I rent down on the Danforth can have 2 to 4 people in that space very, very safely to, support the mental health and physical well-being of our clients. And I think there's a big disconnect there between what services are available and what isn't, because we know that right now the need for mental health support is rising. And for a lot of the population, being able to do physical exercise is a big part of supporting their mental health and their emotional health. And so, my hope is that over the next couple of weeks that we'll see more clear guidelines and the ability for smaller businesses to safely reopen and for us to be able to support our local businesses.
Very well said. So, where can our clients who are watching us, our clients, I say, hopefully your clients in the future find more information?
They can find me online on Instagram, and my handle is @it's Reena Parekh, or on my website, reenaparekh.com.
Amazing. Well, I've been following you all the way through and gotten lots of great tips from you, both from a physical and mental health perspective. And as you said, they are, interconnected. They have to go together. Now, I'm going to digress for a bit. You have already mentioned that you have 2 lovely children and a hardworking husband, and you yourself are doing so much for the community. Like you said, you're a busy mom yourself without a break, but you balance it all. How do you do that?
I don't. I think balance is something that people look for. And I think what we need to do is shift our perspective on what does balance really mean? I don't think I have balance. I think I make it work with the situation at hand and the way that our family runs on its schedule. And I think for me, where that really comes in is I pay close attention to supporting my mental health and my physical health. And so that means really creating boundaries and being able to claim that time to say, this is my 1 hour to go work out, or I am going for a walk after the kids go to bed. And, just really sticking to things that I know that will make me feel better, both physically and mentally, but also give me that space to just be able to decompress and reset my brain really so that I can be ready for the next day.
I really love that. I've never heard somebody define it like that. When you put a question like, how do you balance it? I love the way you have put it together, that it's not necessarily a balancing act. It's like you try your best based on your life situation, and it is different for each and every person. Amazing, Reena. It's been so inspiring talking to you today about the whole journey as an individual, as a female, as a business owner, as a health advocate. And I was wondering if you could give maybe one tip to our viewers that they can practice daily in these tough times. There's a lot out there on your digital platform, but maybe one tip that our viewers can already start with, and then they can go ahead and follow you more on your platform.
Well, my one tip is to take the time. Set a timer, put it in your calendar, whether it's 5 minutes or 35 minutes, take that time. And if you need to stare at a wall, stare at a wall. So you're not looking at Zoom. Or, my best advice is get outside, even if it's for 5 minutes on your front porch or taking a walk around your block. I find that little bit can just give you that mental clarity and that transition time in between everything else that's going on in your day.
Very well said. Stay grounded, take care of yourself, and thanks to experts like you that we can turn to guidance for. Once again, for the benefit of our viewers, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at It's Reena Parekh, or on my website, reenaparekh.com.
Well, thank you very much, Reena, for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today, inspire us today, and give us tips.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So that was Miss Reena Parekh, who has inspired us today to embrace our mental and physical health. Well, that's a wrap for this week's show. Thank you for watching us. Continue to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and write to us at spotlight@ethnicchannels.com. Until next week, this is Amitha signing off, encouraging you to take care of yourself.